Hey friends, we are here with all 4 stages of Carli Suspension's shock packages. For the past 3 years, we've just been romping around on our 2020 Ram 2500 Power Wagon. This is going to be just a brief review of all 4 systems, what to expect between each shock package on your vehicle, whether you have a Ram 2500 or a Ford Super Duty. These shock behaviors are going to be tuned very much similar to what you're going to find on either application, kind of according to Sage and the guys over there at Carli. Each one of these systems is going to have its own kind of lengthy, in-depth review that you'll find on our channel elsewhere. This is just going to be kind of a brief review, kind of an overview, quick to see how to understand the commuter, backcountry, pin top, and Dominator systems and how they stack up to each other, so you guys can just make a really good decision on which package to get out the gate for your truck. We actually got this truck specifically to understand a solid axle suspension better and like a heavy duty platform in general. A lot of the times we're playing around on our own Tundras or Tacomas or Broncos or smaller vehicles here at Shock Surplus that we just have traditionally had a lot more experience with. And so as we thought about a new truck for the shop, we really thought about you guys and the audience and a lot of our customers that are towing a lot, hauling a lot, but also, you know, want to play off-road. So Power Wagon naturally fit that bill. So far on this truck and other similar trucks, I've driven about 8 or 9 different shock packages. So I feel like we've got a lot of experience here to share. And these 4 systems from Carli are the latest iteration of what this truck has seen. And we couldn't be more impressed, to say the least. One caveat before we start is that these are the Fox 2.0s that were previously in use from 2013 and before. Carli now has their own 2.0 specific shocks that they're manufacturing in-house. The valving and tuning is basically going to be the same between these Fox and the new Carli spec shocks. So just want to throw that out there that you guys can expect the same kind of ride between what we've tested and been on versus what you see now available from Carli. So let's start with the commuter system. The 2.0 IFP shock, no reservoir. For us, this was really the biggest difference, the biggest night and day difference that we saw from stock to a modified suspension. Stock, we're on 33s, Bilstein shocks, very, very tight. Stock sway bar. This truck handled like it was on rails, extremely firm, sporty. Off-road, unforgiving though, not comfortable in the slightest. And so when we went over to the 2-inch system, the commuter kit with Fox, we also upgraded to 37-inch tires that you see here, and immediate difference of being small bump compliance, potholes, speed bumps, driveways, everything was just subdued quite a bit more. You felt the suspension move quite a bit more, but not in a sloppy way that you sometimes see on these factory trucks. So huge difference. And if you are debating which package to get, I would say just get in the game on the commuter kit, and then from there kind of you're able to upgrade further with any kind of shock package depending on your needs. But getting in the game on the commuter kit, I think, is the biggest, is going to be the biggest change you'll see from where you're at now versus where you can be and what these trucks can do. Off-road wise, it was more forgiving on the rocky chatter, just more subdued everywhere. The new springs, front and rear, I'm running the R2 springs in the rear. There's also R1 springs, and so it's really just a little bit of a height difference on the rear of these trucks. And I'm running the R2 coils in the back because I usually carry a lot more weight than your typical driver. We do a lot of long range trips. And so one of the things you notice immediately is how much more the suspension is really now allowed to move, because they're really having the shocks dampen all that energy, whereas on a factory truck, it really feels just very much oversprung. And when you pair that with Bilsteins that are a digressive shock, it really feels like the front end of this truck is not doing anything. It's just like very kind of just brick-like off-road. Now with the commuter kit or any of these other systems, it really allows that suspension to move and allows the shock to dampen all that energy, which is, what an off-road suspension is supposed to do. Moving on to the backcountry kit with the reservoirs. Let's just talk about what reservoirs do in general. The reservoirs are going to be moving the nitrogen gas that's typically in this shock down here over to the reservoir. And so not only do you move the nitrogen gas from the main body to the reservoir, you're able to actually increase the total volume of nitrogen gas as well. So we'll call it, 3/4 or half of this reservoir is filled with gas. Part of it's taken up by the internal floating piston here, and then the oil is here at the top part, just kind of being recirculated by this hose. What that allows the shock to do is not only run cooler, but operate under lower pressures in general, which kind of translates to smoother performance for the truck. You're really only going to notice a difference off-road when you start really picking up those speeds. 10, 15, 20 miles an hour faster on forest service roads, county roads. That's kind of what you're able to achieve here for like longer sustained periods of time. And because the internal floating piston is now moved to the reservoir and the gas is now moved to the reservoir, this actually enables a slightly more travel in the main body of the shock. So when you compare an IFP shock to a reservoir shock at the exact same lengths, you're going to get, on this kind of truck, you'll get maybe a 1/2 inch to 1 more inch of total wheel travel, which is significant when you're crawling or when you're off-roading. So a little bit of an upgrade in that regards that is kind of unexpected. The biggest difference for us when moving to the backcountry kit was it was a tad softer. And honestly, I'm not even sure if that was because the trips that we were going on was more heavier loaded. We also got a Expedition 1 bumper around the same time, which easily added 100 pounds to the front of this truck. And so the one thing I noticed was the backcountry shocks feel like they're the softest shock out of all 4 of these options. And so I really noticed that when loading up the truck with 1,000 pounds. The truck kind of crested over into that kind of sloppy behavior, a little bit too soft for my liking. And when I'm off-road, we're mostly in the mountainous trails, rocky trails, slow going. Out in the desert, neither the commuter or the backcountry shocks are really of the caliber to hit anything you want at any kind of speeds you want, similar to like the 3.0s. And so the backcountry really didn't like open up new terrain or new speeds for the kind of driving that I did. So for me, the backcountry shocks really didn't add too much to like my driving experience. They felt very similar to the commuter in terms of comfort. They're a bit softer, but overall, I would say too soft for what we do. And so we quickly moved on from the backcountry shocks. If you want a more in-depth review of the backcountry kit and the commuter kit, we have those on our channel separately in separate videos. So check those out. Obviously subscribe for more suspension stuff and all things shocks. Now, before we dive into the King 2.5s and the Dominator 3.0s, there's something to know about these trucks in general, and these trucks, their suspension and their kind of just supportive components aren't meant to go fast in the desert or off-road in general. Things will definitely start to break here and there, and so knowing this, we see at Shock Surplus, we kind of see all sorts of problems in suspension as we outfit other people's vehicles, so we kind of knew what to expect when we start ramping up the speeds and ramping up these shock packages, because honestly, these Kings can basically withstand more than anything else that a stock truck can withstand. So eventually, when you step into these packages, shocks are no longer the limiter. Your steering, your ball joints, all sorts of other things are now the limiter that you have to really reinforce before they start breaking. So one of the things we did was we chopped off the electronic sway bar, because honestly, when we were crawling, we were using it, but at the same time, we got really tired of it automatically turning back on when you hit 25 miles an hour. And so that back and forth was just really annoying to me. And so we chopped off the electronic sway bar, left the module in place, and then put on Carli's torsion sway bar, just so that it's a semi-active sway bar for all uses. Still provides me that on-road handling, off-road handling, but still allows the suspension to flex to the needs to flex to the amount that I need. We also did the EMF ball joints, which are serviceable, replaceable, and greasable. And these things are, from all accounts, nearly indestructible. I've had no problems, and I've had a lot of hard hits and a lot of mistakes off-road that we'll show you here. We did the fabricated radius arms because why not go for more beef on one of the most structurally important pieces of the suspension. We also installed the Synergy drag link and the Synergy tie rod as well. We also did the Synergy steering box brace, which we were able to install because we chopped off that electronic sway bar disconnect module and kind of put it out of the way. Where the steering box brace can be installed. Of course, we did the Carli track bar and the limit straps because we have jumped this vehicle a number of times. The final thing we did before we put the 3.0s on was trust the axle. And we were running whoops and sharing with you guys all the high-speed desert we were doing, and a lot of people suggested to trust the axle, and we had never done that before, but considering Carli offers that as a piece to these trucks, we thought that was a no-brainer to just further support the axle as we take those like constant hard hits and to protect that beefy axle in the front in all off-road situations. What we would consider the complete opposite of the backcountry kit is the King pin top 2.5 shocks. This is probably the most famous the most famous Carli package they have out there. It's the most coveted one by far, mainly because the Dominator system isn't available for all applications, whereas the 2.5 pin top and the King 2.5 systems are available for a lot of applications. By Carli's own accounts and what some of their people like to talk about is the Kings are sharper. They still keep the terrain subdued, dampened quite a bit, and so they're not firm, they're not harsh, but they are sharper than what you kind of typically experience in either the 2.0 packages. The reason for that is because the 2.5 bodies allow just a lot more valving to be placed within the shock, because that piston allows basically more shims, more valving to enable you to still have substantial comfort, but also not lose a lot of handling, which is typically what you see when you overdo it on comfort. And that's also why the backcountry, in our opinion, why the backcountry is really soft, but the handling is just not there. On Kings, they're not as soft as the backcountry. They feel more like the 2.0s in our opinion, but the handling is it is for sure the best handling shock on this table. Probably not as good as the E-Venture kit, but we'll get to that later. In our opinion, the 2.5s have the best balance between comfort, road manners, tow and hauling, and off-road performance. Speaking of off-road performance and where these kind of shocks really start to shine here, the 2.5s, you really have to push them pretty hard off-road to allow that suspension to move. And that's in comparison to the 3.0s, which we'll get to in a second, where the 3.0s are very plush and very just gives a lot and allows that suspension to move a lot. The 2.5s, you got to really push them harder to really get that compression going. One big difference that you guys will instantly notice on the 2.5s is the bottom out protection. The valving in these allows you to push really hard without bottoming out that front suspension nearly as much as the backcountry or the commuter kit, where those random surprises off-road, you can feel way more confident in the King 2.5s than the backcountry or the Fox. Typically, when I'm seeing a big unexpected bump on the commuter or the backcountry kit, I'm slowing down because I know that that front bump stop is just going to get jacked into my brain. Whereas on these Kings, I actually speed up to hit them harder because that's how these shocks are meant to perform. One big warning though to all King 2.5 pin top buyers out there. We see it a lot in the Carli suspension owners groups on Facebook, on YouTube, from our own feedback and from our own customers, is that these Kings are not pillowy. They're not soft, they're not Cadillac ride, and a lot of people that are maybe used to Kings on their own vehicles, maybe on a buggy or a race vehicle that has been custom tuned by someone, that's not what you're gonna get out of Carli's tune. You're gonna get a firm, kind of sportier ride that's still forgiving, still comfortable, but it's not gonna be that pillowy ride that a lot of people associate with a King shock. That's not to say you can't make it so, but Carli's off-the-shelf valving for these 2.5s is going to be firm, sporty, very well handling, very maintained composure in a lot of scenarios, and you can still push them hard off-road. Can we retune these? Yes, we can. And you can retune them as well to just make them softer and more pillowy and just kind of more like the 3.0s. But just understand, when you make it softer, you're still going to be sacrificing handling. So if it's a pure off-road or trail rig, then yes, maybe that's what you want. But if you have a vehicle that's doing everything, tow, haul, off-road and whatnot, we still think that Carli's off-the-shelf tune is going to be the best for your ride. The Dominator! These are the coveted 3.0 King shocks that everyone wishes they had. Now, are these things worth $6,000? Ask yourself these questions. How much do you love your truck? How unstoppable do you want to feel? How much time do you get to play outside in the dirt and really get after it in your truck? The on-road feel of the 3.0s is what you would consider pillowy, plush, luxurious, very reminiscent of the backcountry kit, but without the slop. So very still maintained a lot of composure, similar to the King 2.5 pin tops. As I kind of have evaluated the difference between the 2.5s and the 3.0s, you know, I'm always hitting all the same speed bumps, the same highway joints. And as someone that sells, you know, thousands of shocks a day, all I think about is a suspension. And so really those little minute differences really kind of play out in my mind. The 3.0s always feel like just more forgiving on all those little small bumps. And it might even be completely imperceptible to most people. It might even be just the wear of the tires that's kind of causing confirmation bias. But we haven't dyno charted these, but overall, and from all the thousands of miles we put on both of these shocks, the 3.0s are just overall way more plush and forgiving. These are the Cadillac ride that you have been looking for. But let's be frank here, the 3.0s are really built for pure off-road performance. If you're only daily driving these things and you just only want comfort, just what a waste. I'm not sure what magic sauce Sage over at Carli is putting in these 3.0s, but the difference in medium and large bump compliance is so drastic when compared to the 2.5s. One of the big things that I notice is that in the 3.0s, I have just so much confidence to just go hit anything I want at any speeds I want. Whereas on the 2.5s, it was really an all or nothing kind of feel. I either had to basically completely avoid those whoops and those bumps because I wasn't going fast enough, or I really have to gun it to kind of skip over everything. Getting sucked into holes just felt a lot easier on the 2.5s, whereas the 3.0s, I could still get sucked into those holes sometimes, but the response and the rebound just allowed it to recover a lot more smooth, just a lot more smoothly. On the compression side, these 3.0s and that ride zone is just so plush. So on those mountain trails, rocky roads, county roads, it's just, it really allows it to move a lot and kind of sit in that kind of medium shaft speed pocket of where it really likes to handle and provides a lot better handling. I would say that in the lower shaft speeds, not good handling at all, because that's why you get that pillowy feel, because it's just allowing the suspension to do a bunch. But in the medium shaft speeds, when that suspension starts to cycle a lot, that's where you really get all your confidence. And so naturally, that's where you want to push the truck to hit those bumps, hit that terrain faster, to sit in that medium shaft speed pocket, to where that's where he gives all the confidence in like a shock, like a 3.0 shock. One of the big differences, and I might even be completely wrong here, I haven't dynoed these shocks, but the rebound between the 3.0s and the 2.5s feels very substantial to me. And I think that's where a lot of the on-road comfort comes from. But off-road, it makes a really big difference, because we're typically, as we were saying, going into those holes or going over bumps pretty fast. It feels like the rebound in the 3.0s are set more rebound, meaning not allowing that wheel to droop out as fast. So on the 2.5s, that wheel is drooping out fast. On the 3.0s, it feels like it's drooping out slower. So as you're hitting on bumps, it kind of allows that shock to pack and just skip along a lot more smoothly. that kind of translates to not only comfort, but just that confidence to keep hitting the bumps at certain speeds and not get trapped in those holes. So that's the one big thing I didn't like about the 2.5s is off-road, it felt like all or nothing, whereas the 3.0s, I really didn't ever have to worry about what speeds I was doing which terrain at. It was just one of those things where just so much confidence and just felt so unstoppable. We have a way more in-depth review on the 2.5s versus the 3.0s separately on our channel, so go check that out and don't forget to subscribe for all things suspension. If you're still hanging out, we super appreciate it. We would love a share. Send this to your Facebook groups or wherever else you hang out with your Ram guys, because we want to help out everyone and get you guys into the right shocks. Thanks so much for watching and sticking with us this far. If you have any questions, hit us up in the comments. If you are running a Carli system, let the audience know in the comments as well, because as the conversation evolves, everyone helps out everyone, and we'll dive in to answer your questions as well. We'll see you guys on the trail.